grade band. So if you are a fifth grade teacher thinking I'm giving a fifth grade test, that's not correct. You are giving the elementary test, which covers all K-5 standards. And the middle school, if you're an eighth grade teacher, you're giving the test. You're not giving an eighth grade test. You're giving a middle school test that happens to occur in eighth grade. And then likewise with high school, we have our high schools that can choose to give the test at any grade of 10, 11, or 12. But know that that test covers all the high school standards, earth, space, life, chemistry, and physics. Even if they haven't taken all of those courses, they're going to see all of them on the test. So just, there's, so I have this, I think it pops up. It's not a fifth, eighth and high school test. This is in all grades in that grade band test. There's a little caveat at the bottom here, which says that actually it's a third of the standard each year selected at random from the full menu. So you need to be ready for all of them. But it's too much to test all of them every year. And then likewise, with the other caveat from elementary is that it's actually a 3-5 test. But all the standards from 3-5 spiral up from K2, and so it really does cover the whole K5 arena there. So just know that when you're giving this test, you need to be thinking about the full grade span and not just the grade that you sit in if you are a teacher. The test, I should have said the tests, and there are some options here that we need to make sure that you're aware of. Of course, the CAST is where most students are taking this computer-based test in the springtime during the testing window. But some of our students, especially our special education students, less than 1% of them who have an IEP, are going to take the California alternate assessment, or at least the IEP team gets to decide if they are best served by taking the alternate assessment. And this is an awesome thing. If you haven't seen these, I really love these tests. They're hands-on performance tasks, and they get given throughout the year, actually. They have a much wider window of when the parts go, and you can give parts of them at different times of year so that you can embed them a little bit more within the instructions. So teach a little bit and then give one component of the alternate assessments. So a really wonderful opportunity for those folks that qualify for this alternate testing strategy. And then the third sort of piece of CAST is not part of the official score system, but it's our interim assessments. And these are formative assessments that you're going to be doing some of the scoring for, the teacher scoring, also given by a computer, also using the same exact interface where your students can try out the interface, but they're doing it on standards for the grade level that you're teaching in. So even if you're a third grade teacher, you can give a CAST interim assessment for third grade that helps build those skills for your students. By the time they get to fifth grade, they'll be ready for that grade test. And so, the bus thing, but now that I've said all that, we're pretty much going to focus here for the bulk of our session on the CAST, the actual computer scored test that's given to most of our students. And so how is that test organized? If you haven't seen it here, we have 6 different pieces to it. Some of those are discrete items where the computer is giving a single question and it stands alone, and the students have to answer that, and it's automatically scored by the computer with their selections. And then there are 3 different performance tasks. And those performance tasks, if I see, I don't have that. So the performance tasks, there's one from life science, one from earth science, and one from physical science. So there's always going to be 3 performance tasks on every CAST from every grade, and one of them in each of the content sort of silos, if you will. So we've got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then I should say that then there's segment 3 is shown on here, includes the practice items that where they are the experimental items, I guess is what I'll call them, the items that the test makers are putting in there to try out. And those could be either discrete items or an extra performance task. So you might end up having 4 performance tasks. And if you don't know what a performance task is, we'll tell you in a moment. But you might end up with 4 of them on the test, or you might end up with extra discrete items. It depends on what they're trying to experiment and try out.
And Matthew,
this is shown here. Oh, yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt because I was the one who threw this curveball at you. It was recently released that for this year, those field items will be spread out across the test and no longer segmented into their own portion.
I was just about to say that. Yes.
Thank you, Matthew.
It's shown on this graphic as segment 3, but that's a misleading thing. They're somewhere, anywhere, we don't know where, and you have to be ready for all the questions. So you won't know which ones are the experimental ones, and so you have to be ready to take all of them, and your students have to be ready for all of them, no matter where they are. So assume everything is real, even though not all of them are scored. Is that what we need to say?
That was 100% it. Well done, sir.
Yeah. All right. So, oops, oh, I clicked on something by mistake. So let me go back here and hit the next button. So there's a test that's got a bunch of questions. You're wanting to know, is there something, anything where there's more subjects emphasized than others? Is that true? And the answer is no. All 3 science disciplines get an equal number of items. So whether you're in elementary school, that's going to be 8 or 9 items. Middle school, it's going to be 8 to 10 items. And in high school, it's going to be 9 to 12. But life science gets 1/3, physical science 1/3, earth and space science 1/3. And there's going to be exactly 1 scored performance task from each of those domains. So no ability to skip some topic area and get off scot-free. It's covering all the standards for all of our students, which is exactly what we're trying to achieve for them. What we wanted to achieve is to make sure that we are getting every student to have access to all these areas of science. Lots of neat and exciting science in here. Now, within those sort of branches of science, are there some topics that are elevated a little bit higher? Yeah, maybe a tiny bit. And so this chart here, which you'll see, you can either screenshot it now. It's also available in the Canvas site. So if you're trying to remember which things, there are a few topics that are a little bit more important, and a few that are a little less important. So for example, if you have to sacrifice a little bit of something in your teaching, it should probably be waves in elementary and middle school here. That's in the physical sciences. Heredity is not stressed as much in middle and high school in terms of number of questions that will appear on the test on average. And then likewise, Earth's place in the universe is down a little bit lower in the elementary and middle school. But you can see in high school, you don't even have too many of the lower tiered ones. It's pretty much each test covers most of the disciplines in roughly equal parts to all of those disciplines. So it's a little hard to find a way to game the test is kind of the take-home message here. It's the way to game the test is teach your students everything they need to know, and that's a hard thing to do, I know, but this is the design of the test. We talked a little bit about the alternate assessment already, and I'm trying to remember what I'm supposed to say. Oh, there's a little bit of the structure. We're going to show you a little bit of the structure of that. And here we can see that our window for administering this starts, September 16th. It starts next week. So you can actually start doing this test as soon as next week, where you're looking at here, where you have these orienting activities, and then go on further and look at the different parts there. And so I don't know a lot about the details of administering this. So if somebody has some questions about how to administer these 3 different performance tasks that there are throughout the year with these different items embedded in each one of the performance tasks. Just if it's really important to you, put your link into the chat, and we'll see if Sarah and Stephen can help us out on that. But I think we'll cruise onwards right now. And well, I should say that even if I don't know all the details of it, I do know that the alternate assessment, because it can begin anytime now, you can plan early and start really thinking about, gosh, what do I want to do? How do I want to do this? And there's an administration planning guide that will help you figure out how to do this, strategize which science domain you're going to start with during the year in your teaching, and which science domain you're going to start with the California alternate assessment there, and try and give those assessments as soon as you can after instruction to give your students the freshest view of things. It's a nice advantage that the alternate assessment gives to students, so they can really demonstrate their knowledge right there in the moment. And you make sure you follow the directions for this one-on-one environment, because this is done in a one-on-one situation, which is really cool, but wish we could do that for everybody. We don't have the resources for it. Well, now I told you we weren't going to talk too much about them, but I am so excited about the interim assessments that I got to tell you at least a little bit about them. So let me tell you a little bit more about the interim assessments. And so there are, in elementary school, there's a 3rd grade, a 4th grade, and a 5th grade. There are assessments for 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and there's a couple versions in each of those grades. In middle school, we've got our earth science and earth and space science. There's a couple of versions there, a life science and a physical sciences, a couple of versions there, and then the same thing in high school. So you kind of have to choose which test you're taking. Now, I know a lot of us are doing an integrated middle school model, and unfortunately, our tests are not administered in an integrative fashion. You're going to have to pull one of these topics as the one that you want to focus on each year. And so, you can see sixth grade is a little bit heavier in the earth and space sciences domains in the integrated model that is California's preferred model. So maybe you're giving this one in sixth, life science in seven, and physical science in eighth as your practice tests. But it also, I guess, it's a good thing for students to be able to see stuff that they haven't experienced and get them used to the idea that you may not know all the different topics on the test. And what do? You just move on to the things that you do know and try your best on the ones you don't. And we'll talk about this in a moment, that even though these are what the domains are, all these tests cover all three of the dimensions, and your students do have experience in science and engineering practices and cross-cutting concepts. So even though you feel like, oh my gosh, I can't give them a test and on an interim assessment where they haven't seen the material, well, they have seen 2/3 of the material, the practices and the cross-cutting concepts. So even though it's not ideal with the organization of how the tests are, it'll be better. It'll be better in the future. And they are coming out I don't know the timing of it, but they are working on a shuffle and design your own interim assessment tool. And I think next year-ish, if somebody has some more details, they can let me know on that. The interim assessments are kind of structured like our sort of big full cast, in that they have some discrete items and a performance task, one performance test. And they're pretty short, actually. They only have about 9 or 10 discrete items in them, and then one performance task, which has got 4 to 6 items. So they can be given in a class period fairly comfortably, depending upon how your students are going through there. But again, this is for you to use and you to look at the results. So you can use them any way you want to. And if you want to do them in pieces as you go, that's great. So we sort of have that there. And it's formatted like the cast. And we will say here, it says, warning, NGSS assessment quality is not always great in the early versions. Some of the assessment items, even though they follow the format and the appearance of the cast, they aren't quite as high quality and receiving the same level of testing and piloting that the actual cast questions are, which are a little bit better. So if you're looking at a question, you're like, I'm not sure this is the greatest question, that may be the case. And we, on behalf of the world, I apologize to you if you find that to be the case on one of your questions. I have nothing to say other than I'm sorry if that's the case. And I think, let's see here. So to access the format I was just showing you here, these are the discrete items again, where you've got your drop downs. We'll look at the item types in a little bit here, but just to tell you how you access these interim assessments. Let's see, am I supposed to do this, or are you talking through this here, Sarah? I forget.
This one hands over to Stephen.
This one hands over to Stephen. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, access to those interim assessments, you access them at cast-lpac.org, that website. And it's organized into categories, into buttons you might visualize roughly as the formative assessment process, mapping the actions to clarify, elicit, interpret, act cycle. A teacher might click through to tools for teachers as they're looking for learning goals, or use the Smarter Content Explorer that's embedded into that to study a way to test items are connected to academic standards. Several different links lead to resources for generating evidence of learning, allowing students to demonstrate their understanding in different ways. For example, you might administer, as Matt was describing, an interim assessment and whole, or display a single compelling question as a bell ringer or over a series of days, or you could administer it with groups of students working together. A button for the California Educator Reporting System, SERS, leads you to a longitudinal resource for reviewing evidence to determine students' progress towards learning goals and success criteria. That interpret step, as you determine and initiate appropriate instructional next steps. As you act, perhaps you'll navigate back to tools for teachers, to the connections playlist, where you might match interim test scores to step-by-step standards-aligned lessons created by teachers. So you might notice in the image there are locks over some of the buttons you'll find on the CAST-LPAC websites, and one that has an unlocked padlock. The practice and train tests under the open padlock are open and freely accessible. The other resources will require that you have access, that you have a user role and a single sign-on assigned to your school email address. On the next slide, we can see a few of the CASP and LPAC interim assessments uh, buttons that give teachers access to all the nuts and bolts of the interim assessment administration. You'll need to have your LEA administrator assign you to a user role that allows access to these links if you're administering interim assessments like a test. For example, you won't get data back for students unless you are administering it in the system in a way that looks like a CASP test or looks like the summative assessment, or at least parts of it are administered to students in the system rather than as something projected on the board or something printed out for use in the classroom. If you are looking for that role, you can reach out to your LEA coordinator for CASP, CAASPP, and they can assign you a role for the CAST, the science test. And back to you, Lee.
And so, just as I'm transitioning over here, just to remind folks that even though there's a lock on these items here for the interim assessment, you get to use them in your classroom. You have to have that lock to get access to them. But then within your classroom, you can use them however you like, including the computer-based, the paper-based. They're not as secure as the full CAST is, so you get a little bit more flexibility. And so. Ask questions if you wonder what that if you have questions about what that flexibility is. All right, Lee, tell us all about what comes next.
All right, so let's get to the results, right? We spend a lot of time to prepare students for their test, and then how do you know the results, and then how can you look at in different ways. So there are two websites on the left. That's the CASP website, and these are the public data. Everybody can look at it, including parents. So these are more like data they are showing the whole overall school. You can choose. Can you go to next slide, please? Because that next slide actually has all the. No, sorry. Next slide. That actually has So if you go to the CAPS website. If you see on the top, right, there's on the right hand side on the top, you can type the school for whichever school you're at, and then you can find the particular school's results. And then also there are a couple of different factors you can choose, different year and grade level. You can pick each grade or all the grades, and you can also filter different type of students like gender or socioeconomic status, and then you can filter all those and apply, and you can see particular groups their results. And then for the results, there are different colors. 4 colors we focus on the green and the blue. So these are the ones that met or exceed the standard, right? So hopefully we have a higher number of that. The 30% of 30.7% is the one combine both of those two levels. And next slide, please. And so if you also look at the all the grades, we can kind of see this is the last year's results, and for all grades, and then all of the students who took the test, right? So you can see for grade 5 and grade 8, where are they at? Right, so the top is just the color, and then the bottom is all the data, actual percentage. And so we can compare the elementary school and then for the middle school, grade 5 and grade 8, and we can kind of see that actually grade 5 actually did better, right? So for grade 5 has slightly higher on 4 and then level 3 than middle school. So elementary school did really well compared to for middle school. And for high school, because the high school, the school can decide which grade the student take the test, and then 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. So they are some of the breakdown data. And then so if you pay attention to if you click one more time, Matthew, we're gonna see, the comparison of grade 10, 11, and 12. And we can see that from these three last year's data, grade 11 actually did the best, right? So probably that will be the better time for the school to give the test. And then next slide, please. So the other way to look at individual reports, I think this only the teacher have access and administrators. So this is for individual reports, and then that including overall, you can see the whole school, and you can also click each student for their individual report. That will show overall, you can see where are the students at, right? 206, that is yellow, is like pretty close to the one that met the standard, but not yet. And also they are break it down by different subject, life science, physical science, and earth science. So you can kind of see that different subject, how they are doing for the test. And next, please. So this is the report, individual report that received by the parents. And then so each of the so their overall level, right? And then they are like the score of that representing that level. And then there are also the three different categories of the specific the subject. And I believe something new this year is that these report now has been combined with the math and the English, so that student parents receive the report, it will be all combined, three of the three tests together. Next. See, there are too many links embedded, so all right. So this one, Stephen's gonna talk about it. Something new.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's look really briefly about what science looks like on the state accountability system. What does CAS look like on the dashboard, the California school dashboard, and what will it look like? So if we go to the next slide, this is science on the current state accountability system, this current California school dashboard. And so this shows the 2024 science indicator and the version currently online. So there are three main differences from what we'll see here and what we'll see in the future. First, notice that the indicator, and you can see it on the left, and you can see it on the bottom under the words informational purposes. Notice that the indicator has no color. For the other academic indicators and the other indicators, all the other indicators, but for the other academic indicators, and science is an academic indicator, for ELA and math, colors represent overall performance by combining status and change, two factors. However, science on the 2024 dashboard indicator, that 2024 dashboard indicator for science only shows 1 year of data. So it only shows status. It doesn't show any change. It doesn't show how that changed year over year because it's just 1 year. On November 13th, 2025, in a couple months from today, the 2025 dashboard will drop. And the new science indicator will add color, red, orange, yellow, green, and blue, just like the ELA math indicators. The visible spectrums used to signify that performance: lower frequency, lower energy colors, lower growth or status; higher frequency, higher energy colors, higher growth, higher status. It's called a dashboard, and the indicators look a little bit like a vintage speedometer on a car dashboard, just as speed or engine RPM is transduced to the needle moving across an arc. Student performance in the California school dashboard is mapped along an arc, left to right. So the first visible change to the California school dashboard for science will show up this November as a needle is added, pointing to a color indicating performance. Second, the second difference you'll see in the future. The second, in 2025, the science indicator will use a point conversion called science points. The current 2024 dashboard shows status using scale scores and distance from standard. The purpose of that change, the purpose of the use of science points, is to create a distinct system so that status comparisons across subjects are discouraged. And that means so that science isn't compared, the new numbers in science aren't compared with the numbers in ELA and math. And that's because there was a lot of confusion the first time this came out with regard to those comparisons. They weren't on equivalent scales. And so comparing those numbers was confusing as to performance. So instead, comparisons should only be made with the performance level, and that'll encourage that. Third, science doesn't currently affect accountability. The status currently published on the 2024 dashboard doesn't count toward accountability. And this year, the performance level that will be based on status and 2-year change published in November with the addition of the 2025 data will not affect accountability either. Science doesn't currently affect designations like ATSI, TSI. Use of science and accountability determinations will require State Board of Education approval, and that State Board of Education approval will likely not occur before a current year 3-year ATSI TSI cycle concludes. So, in summary, color is coming to show performance. The scale is changing to science points to separate science from ELA and math, and to use accountability. And the use for accountability could start with a future dashboard if board approved. And then back to you.
Thank you, Stephen. We know we have been talking a lot, so we want you to get a little time to think about things. And so now the structure of the cast and different type of cast, different types of the test, and cast is on the dashboard. So we want you to take a minute to think about how might you use the data for planning purpose. We'll give you a minute also to type in the chat. So we'll go from there. To measure growth for departments. Michael says that. Nice. Yeah, so definitely, it's the results is on the dashboard, and then you can also look at different academic years of the CAS results, right? To think about how to improve certain perhaps areas, certain subjects, review school-wide data, and CAS internal assessment with department. For sure, that's a good idea.
I love clearly as I'm looking at, I'm seeing school-wide and departments, and people are really recognizing that these assessments are not assessing an individual teacher, they're assessing the full program that they're experiencing across the full grade span. And that's the way that people are formulating their questions tells me that they're getting that, which is really exciting.
Yeah, definitely work with your colleagues and then discuss together and think about, maybe different grade level need to do what, right? And also improvement has been made. Very nice. All right, so because of the time, we have to move on. Please, keep typing in the chat. We can come back later after we finish the next 2 parts of our presentation. Matthew, next slide, please. So this is a fun comic for us to think about the importance of cast, right? So if you can see from here, very obviously, all these like very beautiful species already extinct for whatever reason we can tell. So for human beings, the most important thing for us being so special is we think, right? So we want to carry it over, especially for science. Now we know that AI is coming, AI is everywhere, right? So what is the thing that we can compete with AI or anything that keep us to move forward? So that is to keep us thinking, right? So we want to teach students the way to how they can think like scientists and teach them what scientists do. So that is going to be important. We're going to focus on not only assessment, but also in our teaching. Next slide, please. So the next part, we're going to share some of the sample questions. I'm going to definitely have you to think about with me together with your students' head and teachers' head about these sample questions. So one of the main things that the text writer has been instructed to do is they come up with some phenomena that are not very familiar for the students. So they may never see that before. So they actually have to analyze the question and to think about use those skills that they learned to do the test. And so one of the these pictures show some hypothetical situation. Is not a real test question, but likely to represent the mirror of that. So this is a deer with that butterfly-like ears, right? So the question may be like, how might the butterrope's ears help it survive, grows, or reproduce? Right? So students actually have to look at the scenario and think about using the DCI, SCP, and for analyzing and then looking at the situation and then answer the questions. Next, please. So we're gonna look at a couple of questions, but one of the things that teachers can prepare, right? So for mostly not just teaching the facts, but also we want to teach them the skills, especially the test. For every test, must provide at least two of the NGSS dimensions. So which means that 2/3 of the test, they will be having SEP and CCC, right? So we cannot, teach the test in a way, but we can teach the test by preparing students for those skills that are in the centers. Next slide, please. Lots of the questions that they will be having those two dimensions of SEP and CCC. One of that would be data analyze. Right, so next slide is going to show you one example question. So this question, if you read along, so this is a question to have a scenario of an experiment. As you can see that students are giving the variables and there's a table showing the data. If you can type in the chat which SEP you think this is testing, or which CCC you think this is testing, that would be great. So this is an elementary level of a physical science question. So I'm gonna wait for few seconds for you. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to move fast. But hopefully you get some time to think about it. Right? So this is about patterns, right? This is about analyzing data, right? So these are the two main things that our testing students actually have to find which one is the dependent variable, which one is the independent variable. And then they're going to be able to find the pattern through plotting this graph. Next one is using models. We're gonna see a question next, please. That this is a model that has been shown in the problem about water cycle. A student will be able to read the graph and also to answer that based on this model, which that is going to be true to telling about the rules of the living organisms in the water cycle. And so this one is about using models, right? And then this one is a middle school level for life science. And for these, students will be able to read the whole cycle, and then they will find out which one from the question, from the response, they are going to actually be part of the model, which is the first one, like the plants help to move water from the soil to the atmosphere. So that is the one particularly talking about the transpiration. And other ones that are not in the model, right? So students have to be able to use the model information to answer the question. Next one, please.
Yeah, and I just want to say I really like this because this last answer, animals create pathways in the mountain that allow water to flow downhill. That actually does happen in real life. That is true, but this is saying what is shown in the model, and so we're testing that practice of looking at a model and seeing what parts are included in it, what parts are not included in it. So that's they said obviously if you know more about the water cycle, you're going to do a better job answering that, but you can't answer this just by looking at the model here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, being able to utilize the information has been provided about the model and using them, that's important. Next one. So next one, this one is about a chemistry model that showing a chemical reaction. Right, so this one that has the molecular representations, and one student to be able to answer it by analyzing the change of the molecules before and after the chemical reaction. Right? So in this case, students need to know what is the law of conservation of mass, but also they have to be able to analyze the model to be able to find what happened the before and after the chemical reaction. And so this one is also about using model, and then in this case, they have to count the numbers and make sure they are equal, right? For the different colors, like for N, that is the blue, and for hydrogen, that is the white. And so they can look at before and after the change and then find the answer based on their based on their understanding about the model. Next one, please. I believe this is the last one. So we have another question that showing that students have to be able to construct explanations. Next, please. So this is a biology problem, right? So in this case, also they have been provided information about parameciel, and then they have a picture. They introduce the species, and more importantly, they have the graph to show how the species of the population size change across the time. So the student have to be able to read this context and to explain that why the population is being rapidly grow in A, but then at B they stops, right? So students have to be able to construct the explanation, and then also they have been giving enough information and then definition of the carrying capacity to be able to construct the explanations. And so these are, I think we have all the example questions. So you can, from these questions, you can tell that all the questions, they're not only focused on the core ideas, right? They are having the SEP, they're having the cross-cutting concepts that students have to be able to know. So also the test is try to not focus on any of the memorization. So we have all the tests on the right-hand side, there's a formula sheet. Student can click there and then you can find the formula sheet. If you're a teacher, you can use that formula sheet for regular basis. So students are familiar with these formulas. So they don't have to memorize, they just utilize those tools. And next one. So before we let you go, we have some homework for you. Teachers love homeworks. We're gonna assign some homework for you before next time you come back. So they do have some very good tours, free tours, and then practice tests and training tests. So if you are teaching middle school, it will be nice that you actually try the 5th grade test, and then if you're high school, it's better for you to actually try the 8th grade, so you know that where students are at before they come to your class. So 2 of the different kinds of tests. The practice test is the full length. Basically, it's like a similar number of items and the structures like the real CAS test. But training test is more like a short, relatively short, and then they are more for students to be familiarized with the computer setting. And then that's for like a small, relatively short item, a small amount of items that student can give it test of, give it a taste of the test. Next one, please. So if you do click the link in the chat, and you will see this interface, you will pick the one that on the right, and that's the practice and training test. And the next slide. So the interface, you don't have to log in. You're just going to be continue as a guest. So you don't need username or anything like that. So you can continue as a guest. And then once you go to the guest section, and then you're going to see different grade level, you can pick whichever you want to give a try and on. And there's a lot of tests listed there, including CAST. And CAST is, you scroll down, is pretty much in the middle of it. And there's other ones like, the English one, or there's like the alternative test. So you want to pick the right one, you want to try, and then you can do either the practice test or try the training test, right? One is more like a full length, the other one is like a short one. And next one, please. And also that these examples on the right, they are actually the CAA, the alternative test. Like Matthew said, I left them. They're actually pretty straightforward. They are like hands-on. You can also have, if you have IEP students in your class, you can have them to give it a try on those test questions and then get them ready. Next one, please.
Sorry, went too far.
So Lisa, I believe Sarah is going to talk about some future opportunities for you.
Yeah, so we're just going to wrap a few things up and then we're going to open it up to your questions. We would like to invite you, if you're interested, to check out the California Association of Science Teachers. And I'm dropping the link in chat right now. If you're interested, there's a flyer there. There are different levels of membership, so feel free to check it out. Let's go to the next slide.
Oh,
We'll,
sorry.
We also want to let you know that here at LACOE in the assessment unit, we have a myriad of professional developments that we're doing, everything from interims to math, all sorts of different that we would like to invite you to be part of. So you can see our link to our assessment catalog right there. We also are hosting an in-person workshop coming up in October on the 15th. It will be at the Covina Valley Unified School District office, the field house. It's gorgeous. And it's called From Insight to Impact, Connecting Science Data, Supports, and Instruction. It's going to be a full-day workshop that Stephen and myself will be doing in collaboration with our STEM science unit here at LACOE. So if you're interested in that, I've dropped that link in there as well. And one more.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, hold on a
It's your
second.
time. It's your time to shine, Matthew.
Yes, I need to put it up here. So, oh shoot, hold on a second. The QR code is coming here. So we would love, even though you've filled out some things that would be helpful, there's different funding sources that allow us to do our fun workshops like this. And one of them is it requires us to keep track of people in a separate database. So if you would be so willing as to go to this QR code, or I think I can drop it into the chat for you here. Click on the following link that I will put in here. Actually, it's a different one that has more of it pre-filled for people here, Sarah. So if people already got it there, you can check it out there. Help us out and add these things in for today's workshop with 1 hour. It's already pre-filled. You can go to the URL there, and hopefully that will get you where you need to be. So with that, while this is up here, let's take a chance for people to ask questions here, and I'll see if there's any questions already in here.
You can also feel free to, we have one. I was just going to say, go ahead and raise your hand. What a wonderful example. Go right ahead.
Go ahead, Donita.
Yes, hi, I'm Donita. First of all, thank you so much. I'm a second-year teacher, and this has been really helpful because last year I was like, they're like, the cast is coming up. I was like, oh, I have no idea what it's about. So now I'm glad to be here and be part of this. I looked at our school scores, and I noticed that it's broken. The scores are broken down by domain, like life science, earth science, and physical science. And I guess for me, it's kind of hard to know like where the gaps are by grade level because I teach middle school science. So I want to ask, like, do you guys have any insights on how to analyze that data, or is that just like how it is? So yeah, that's my question.
Very good question. I think we had those questions all the time in a
Yeah.
test, right? Because like, well, it is not there for the details of, in terms of all the three-dimensional categories of how students perform. So unfortunately, I don't know when they're going to be having it. Are they working on it?
Yeah.
I think we discussed this before. Maybe perhaps because